Vayichan sham Yisrael neged ha'har, ahar kulanu ke'echad.
Chodesh Tov. Thank you so much for joining us here on this Vayichan project. It's very exciting to be part of this special Erev Shavuos project. I'm Miriam Kosman. I'm the author of the book Circle, Arrow, Spiral, Exploring Gender in Judaism. And our topic today is Say Yes to Love. So when a person does something, it's always a good idea to know what's the main purpose and what are the fringe benefits. Take, for example, marriage. I think most people would agree that it's helpful to have two adults living together in the same household. One of them can do the grocery shopping and one of them can put gas in the car. But if somebody thinks that the purpose of marriage is having somebody to put gas in the car, they're making a big mistake. The purpose of marriage is bonding two souls in a covenant of love. Having someone to put gas in the car is a fringe benefit. So we could say the same thing about Shavuos and about receiving the Torah. Why did Hashem give us the Torah? What's the purpose of the Torah? What was the purpose of bringing us to Har Sinai? So I teach secular Israeli university students, and every year I ask them this question. And generally speaking, their answer is like this. Look, you're religious, so you believe that the Torah is a guidebook for life, and the reason you keep it is because you're hoping that you're going to get a good portion of the world to come, or you're hoping to bring the world to the Messianic era. And you're doing it basically because you think it works. Now those are interesting points. There's no question that when we do mitzvos and stay away from averos, we're improving our lot in the world to come. There's no question that we're bringing the world to a better place. But is that the purpose of the Torah? Is that the purpose for which Hashem brought us to Har Sinai? What is the purpose? Well, happily, Hashem told us the purpose himself. And the pasuk in Shemos says, Atem re'isem asher asisi l'Mitzrayim, v'asa eschem al kanfei misharim, v'avi eschem elai. The pasuk is saying, and Rashi says this, and the Medrash elaborates, that Hashem says to Am Yisrael, did you see what I did to Mitzrayim? This is not the first time that a nation misbehaved. This is not the first time that the Mitzrayim themselves did something wrong, but it's the first time I responded in such a dramatic way. It's the first time I brought 10 plagues. It's the first time I split the sea. It's the first time I drowned an entire army in the water. And why did I do it? For only one reason. Va'avi eschem elai. To bring you close to me. Har Sinai was about Hashem inviting us into an intimate love relationship with him. He would be our God, and we would be his Am Segula, his treasured nation. The truth is, love changes everything. It's a different language and an entirely different dynamic. Of course it's true that we get rewarded in the world to come. But that isn't the reason that we do the mitzvos. The Rambam writes very clearly in Hilchos Tshuva, Al Yomar Adam, Hareini Osem Mitzvos HaTorah, Kedei She'akabel Kol HaBrachos HaKasuvos Ba. A person should not say that I'm keeping the Torah in order to get all the blessings that are written in it, or that I should merit to have the world to come. And he shouldn't say, I'm not doing averos in order that I shouldn't be punished, or in order that I shouldn't get a good portion in the world to come. But a person should say, I'm doing this out of ahavas Hashem. Hashem asked me to do it, it's true, and I'm doing it because I love Hashem. The same thing with Mashiach. When you're in a love relationship, even the concept of Mashiach is different. The Gemara in Shabbos says that when a person dies, there's a list of questions they're going to be asked. Some of them relate to practical life. Were you honest in your business dealings? Were you kovei itzim laTorah? But one of the questions sounds a little out of place. Tzipisa liyeshua. Did you wait for salvation? Why is that so important? Let's say I didn't. Let's say I was a good Jew, I kept Shabbos, I kept kosher, I tried not to speak Lashon Hara, I tried to be a good person, but I didn't wait for Mashiach. Why is that one of the questions that Hashem asks us after we die? And the answer, I think, is that our response to the question of Tzipisa liyeshua, did you yearn for salvation, tells us what the tenure of our relationship with Hashem was while we were here in this world. That question means that Hashem is going to turn to us and say, did you miss me? Was I the focal point of your life? Did you yearn for me? Even when you had a good day, Did you say it was a good day, but it wasn't good enough because I was far away from Hashem? Awaiting redemption means that we are yearning for a relationship with Hashem, and that is what the purpose of the Torah is. Love introduces an entirely new way of looking at things. Generally speaking, we do things for our own benefit. We go to work to make money in order to buy things that we need, in order to support our family. We eat food because it's healthy or because it tastes good. But love is not about how it benefits us. I once heard of Moshe Shapiro give an example of a couple walking out of the hospital with a brand new baby. And they're so happy, and they're walking along with this adorable baby, and somebody comes over to them and says, "Oh my gosh, that's such a cute baby. Listen, can I buy him from you? I'll give you $10 million. Will you sell your baby to me?" He says, what would be the reaction of a couple to that kind of questions? And he says, they'd laugh. The question is ridiculous. Why is the question ridiculous? Let's think about that for a minute. $10 million is a lot of money. Okay, the baby is very cute, but theoretically they could have another baby next year. And imagine if they sell this baby for $10 million, and next year they have another baby, they'll have a baby plus $10 million. Why is it ridiculous? And don't forget that this sweet little baby in their arms is going to cost them a very pretty penny throughout his life. And this child's probably going to give them a nice share of heartache, because all children do at some point in time. So why do they laugh at the question? And the answer is because love takes us out of the regular sphere of life. Love introduces us into a completely different dimension, where the questions we ask and the things we do not always make logical sense. Love is so fundamental to our essence as human beings. Sociologists and psychologists call us a social animal. We love relationships. It's important to us to not be alone, to be part of a community. But that's really a very superficial way of looking at it. The truth is, our desire for love touches on our essence as spiritual beings. The Chazal referred to us as a medaber, one who speaks. Right? So there's a certain type of hierarchy. So you have an inanimate object, a plant, an animal, and then you have the medaber, the ones who speak. What is speech? Speech is about connection. Speech is about closing up the chasm that exists between two completely separate people. Speech is a way to bridge that gap. When we speak, we don't speak to ourselves. Or if we do, we try not to let people know. The purpose of speech is to reach across and connect to somebody else. That is our essence. We are people looking for relationship. Rav Olba points out that Hebrew is the only language that the word chayim is in plural. And he says it's not only in plural, but it's in the specific kind of plural that's used in Hebrew to describe a pair. For example, yad is a hand, yadayim is hands, chai is life, chayim is lives. Why is it that the word in Lashon HaKodesh for life is plural? And Rav Olba answers, and he says, Hachayim hemitziut zugit. Life is about connecting. It's about relationship. It's about reaching across the chasm and touching the soul of another being. And Rav Olba brings a few examples. One example is about Choni HaMagal. And if you remember the story, Choni HaMagal went to sleep for 70 years. And when he woke up, he went into a beis medrash, and nobody knew who he was. And he said the very famous words, O charusa, O misusa, either friendship or death. And Rav Olba adds here a beautifully nuanced insight. He says, Choni HaMagal, when he walked into that beis medrash, they didn't know he was Choni, but they did realize he was a great man. They did realize he was a huge Talmid Chacham. They gave him respect, they gave him honor, but it wasn't enough for him, because they didn't see him as Choni. They didn't realize who he was. It's not enough for people to notice you. Love is about being seen by another person. Another example he brings is from Eov. And he quotes this in the name of Rav Isaac Sher, that the Satan was given permission to do anything to Eov, except to kill him. And we see indeed that the Satan took everything away from him. He lost all his possessions, and he lost all his children. The one thing he didn't lose was his friends. And Rav Isaac Sher says that if the Satan would have taken away his friends, that would have been killing him. If there was nobody to reflect with, nobody to talk to, nobody to work through his experiences with, if he had no friendship, no one to see him, and no one to allow him to be seen, that would have been as good as death. The point being that our desire for love is intrinsic to our sense of self. It's intrinsic to who we are as human beings. So that's on the positive side of love. But there's another side, a negative side, and that is that love is very scary. Why is it scary? Because it makes us vulnerable. That's a sad fact of life, but it's a fact nonetheless. Loving somebody makes us vulnerable. I have a friend who has a teenage son who's giving her a lot of heartache. And she said to me, I wish I didn't care so much about him. He's not listening to a word I say. Why don't I just say, okay, go jump off the cliff? Why can't I divorce myself from him emotionally? I'm in such pain because of him, and it's only because I love him. I wish I could stop loving him. But love just isn't a button that you can turn on or off. I once had a student who said to me, no, she doesn't agree at all that love makes you vulnerable. She said, and she told me very earnestly why. She said that she and her boyfriend had made a deal together that they were only going to stay together as long as it was fun for both of them. And the minute it got difficult, or the minute either side wasn't enjoying it anymore, they would just say bye, and everybody would go on their happy way. And she said, and we promised each other that we would never be hurt by each other. And I had to laugh to myself because it was so sweet and at the same time so pathetic that she was trying so hard to protect her heart. As if you can just make a deal. Love is opening up a hole in your heart, the size of the person that you love. And when they're not there, the hole is there. You can't escape from vulnerability. And love doesn't just make us vulnerable, it also obligates us. It obligates us to take another person's feelings, needs, and desires into consideration. That means if I like it when it's cold, and I love somebody who likes it when it's hot, chances are I'm going to spend part of my life sweating. And it's not because the other obligates me, it's because I obligate myself. When you love someone, you give them a place in your life, and what they need and want becomes important to you. So why are we interested in love? I mean, we like being strong, self-sufficient, we like having, we don't like being vulnerable, we don't like being needy, we don't like being obligated. So why are we looking for a relationship of love? It's a good question, but you know what? It's a question that comes from outside the system. When a person is in a love relationship, and when I say a love relationship, I don't just mean marriage. There are many, many, many types of love relationship in the world, right? There could be a love relationship between friends, between siblings, between neighbors, between relatives, between caretakers and their charges. When a person is within a love relationship, they don't ask the question, what's the point? What am I gaining? Is this worth it? What am I losing? Love really lifts you into a dimension of expansion and transcendence where the question of is it worth it just fades away. Love just is. Matan Torah was a time of tremendous intimacy. Chazal call it a time of panim al panim, a face-to-face relationship. Panim al panim. What is panim? Panim is face. It shares a root with the word pniyah. What does pniyah mean? Pniyah means a solicitation. What does that mean? A face-to-face relationship is particularly intimate because a person's face is a pniyah. It's a solicitation to the other person to relate to them as the individual, exclusive, specific person that they are. A friend of mine told me a story about how when she was in the hospital once and she had to undergo a few very, very painful medical procedures, that she noticed a very interesting thing. She said when the doctors and nurses would come in to do this painful procedure, she noticed that they often would not look at her face. Now these were the same doctors that yesterday and the day before had been friendly and nice to her. And all of a sudden she noticed that they were avoiding her eyes. And she thought, and her feeling was that the reason for this was, and I can't prove that this is true, this was her perception, was that it was hard for them to do this painful procedure. And if they would look her in her face and see her as a unique human being that she was, they wouldn't be able to do the procedure. By not looking into her face, it was almost as if they were turning her into an object. She was a person on their list of procedures to do, and that made it much easier for them to be able to do this painful procedure. Presence, I am here. Will you open up your life to make a place for me in your life? And immediately following the first commandment comes the second one. Lo yelcha Elohim achirim. Do not make an idol. Don't draw a picture of me. Don't make a statue of me. Don't make an image of me. Don't make any representation of me at all. And the question is why? Why is it so important? Why is it the second commandment? Why is it repeated over and over in the Torah? What is wrong with making an idol? One can imagine a person saying to Hashem, listen Hashem, I'm a physical being. It's hard for me to relate to somebody without any type of physical representation whatsoever. How about if I make a small idol? I'll know that it's not you. I'll know that it's only a representation of you. But it'll just make it easier for me to relate to you. I can kiss the idol, I can hug the idol, I can carry it around with me. Why is that so terrible? And perhaps the reason is related to what we're saying right now. When I make a picture of Hashem, I'm reducing Hashem, I'm diminishing Hashem to my own personal parameters, to the way I view him. But that's not what Hashem is. When I turn and face Hashem, I have to come to grips with the fact that this is a huge, infinite being that I have no way to really grasp. And just by the way, this also applies to human beings in the sense that a human being is a Tzelem Elokim who has a vast, infinite soul, and we also are uncomfortable with the lack of control that comes from not really knowing the other person. So we try to put them in a box. We try and say, oh, you're a New Yorker? Oh, you're British? And the person responds, well, I may be from New York, but I'm not like all other New Yorkers. Why is it so important for him to say that? Because he's saying, don't make an image of me. Don't draw a picture of me and then put that in your pocket and think you know me. Let me be me. Face my face and allow me to be in relationship with you, not what you project upon me. And it's fascinating that right opposite the dibra of Anochi Hashem Elokecha is the dibra lo tirtzach. Because if I'm willing to be in a relationship with another person, if I'm willing to see shining from his panim, from his face, his tzelem Elokim, I won't murder him, literally or metaphorically. So we need love. We yearn for love. We look for love, and at the same time, we struggle with love, and we run away from love because we are afraid of the vulnerability and we're afraid of the obligation. There's a beautiful illustration of the two sides of this struggle that we read every year on Shavuos in Megillas Ruth. On the one hand, we have Orpah. Orpah was Ruth's sister, and I want us to realize that Orpah was not a spiritual deadweight. When the pasuk lists Ruth and Orpah, Orpah comes first. And Orpah was called the Neshuka, the one that was kissed, which is interesting because it's true that Naomi kissed Orpah, but at the same time that she kissed Orpah, she also kissed Ruth. So if we're going to call Orpah the Neshuka, the one who was kissed, then Ruth should be called that as well. The only time that there is a kiss discussed only in relation to Orpah is when it says, Vatishak Orpah l'chamota. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law. So why is she called the one that was kissed? And the answer might be, is that kissing is reciprocal. A person kisses when they're kissed. Orpah is called the kissed because she was touched by Naomi. Her soul was stirred by Naomi. She saw Naomi's greatness. Chazal tell us on the words, Vateitzei Naomi mehamakom hazeh, that when Naomi left Moab, it uses the word Vateitzei, similarly to how the word is used with Yaakov Avinu, Vayichan, that when Naomi left Moab, Pana Ziva, Pana Hadra, Pana Shivcha. She was such a great woman that when she left Moab, it was as if the lights had gone out. And Orpah saw that, and she loved that, and she wanted to connect to it. And she left Moab together with Naomi on her way to Beit Lechem. And then Naomi started to talk to her. And she said to both her and Ruth, and she said, it's not worthwhile for you to come with me. I have nothing to give you. You're going to lead a sad and lonely life with me. I have no sons to give you. You will never get married. You'll be poor. You'll be miserable. And Orpah listened, and all of a sudden, she stopped talking love language, and she started to talk benefit language. and she kisses her mother-in-law, and she goes back to Moab. And Chazal see in her name Orpah, the word Oref. The Oref refers to the back of the neck. The Oref is the back of the neck. And it says that Orpah pana Oref, she turned her back on Naomi. It was as if Naomi was offering her a panim el panim relationship, a face-to-face relationship with Naomi, with Judaism, and with Hashem. And Orpah just didn't have the courage to go through with it. And she switched her languages to, is this good for me? And she turned and she left. And that word Oref is the same word we hear many, many, many years earlier when the Jewish people made the golden calf. And Hashem says to us, you are an am keshe oref. You are a stiff-necked people. Why does he call us stiff-necked? Why does he call us an am keshe oref? Why not call us, he could call us impetuous. He could call us chutzpahdik, I just told you not to do it and you're immediately doing it. What does it mean, am keshe oref? And the stubbornness that am keshe oref refers to is that Hashem had turned towards us in a panim and el panim relationship. He had offered us a relationship, a face-to-face relationship, and yet we turned our back and slithered back to what was comfortable to us. An idol that we could shape, we could decide who he is, we could carry it around in our pocket, we could be in control. We ran away from the vulnerability and the obligation of relationship. So we were an am keshe oref who turned our back just like Orpah did. And then on the other hand, you have Ruth. And what does Ruth say? She hears the same speech that Orpah heard from Naomi, that it's not worthwhile to go with her to Beit Lechem. And what does Ruth say? Al tifkei bi. Don't bother me. Don't even bother going on. I don't care if it's worth it. And she says the famous words, Ki al asher talchi eleich, v'ka asher talini alin, amech ami, elokayich elokai. It's interesting that Ruth is the first convert, and she does not speak about God first. It's at the end of her sentence. Where you go, I'll go. Where you sleep, I'll sleep. Your nation is my nation, and your God is my God. Because this was not a theological dissertation. This was an emotional, visceral declaration of love. And she was saying to Naomi, it doesn't matter what this relationship is going to cause me. Wherever you go, I'm going. I'm clinging to you. I'm not leaving you. This statement of Ruth was an exact echo of what we, the Jewish people, said at Har Sinai, Na'aseh v'nishma. All the other nations asked, first tell us what's written there. That's such a reasonable question. Before you obligate yourself, find out what it is. It's a reasonable question, except when you're talking about a love relationship. Na'aseh v'nishma says, we don't care what it involves. We're here in the circle with both feet. I was once discussing shidduchim with a young Beis Yaakov girl that I knew, and we were discussing the possibility of her marrying a boy from another country, and I asked her whether she'd be willing to do that. And she looked at me and she said, I want to marry the kind of person that I really won't care where I live. Because wherever I live, whatever country I live in, I'm going to live with him. And I thought that was such a beautiful way of expressing this ideal that love is not about the details. Love is about the relationship. There's a similar idea that the Ramban expresses when Moshe is standing at the burning bush. And he says to Hashem, how am I going to be able to convince these people who are an am chacham v'navon? They're smart, they're not pushovers. How am I going to be able to convince them to go to Eretz Canaan? That's a scary place. They're not going to listen to me, they're not going to want to go. And the Ramban says that Hashem explains to Moshe, you don't have to get them to Eretz Canaan. You just have to get them to Chorev. You just have to get them to Har Sinai. You just have to get them to the place where we enter into this panim el panim relationship. And the Ramban uses these words. And if you get them to Har Sinai, acharecha yerutzu l'chol makom. They will run after you to anywhere. Because once you're in a love relationship, what's important is the relationship and not the detail. So let's go back to that first commandment, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Notice that commandment is in the singular. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, lo Anochi Hashem Elokechem. I am the Lord your God in the singular and not in the plural. The Ramban points out that the reason that this commandment is given in the singular is to tell us that Hashem was talking to each and every one of us individually. He says it like this, Im kol echad medaber. Just like with Choni Amagal, when it wasn't enough to just be treated with respect, when he wanted to be known as an individual, so too, in the same way, we also want to know that Hashem sees our own individual, exclusive, personal self. And when we daven, we refer to Hashem as Elokai, my personal God. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am your personal God, and we respond back, Elokai, you are my own personal God. May we have the courage this Shavuos to open our hearts and our faces to Hashem. Rav Olba says that the only time that we can really taste the full sweetness of life is when we stand nochach pnei Hashem, facing the face of Hashem. Vayichan Yisrael neged hahar, all of us together and each one of us individually. Wishing you a beautiful Yontif and a beautiful Kabbalah Torah. If you'd like to read more of my work or to sign up for my email list, you're welcome to visit me at miriamkosman.com. Thank you.